Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this video that will focus on the art of manifestation through divine focus. Recently, I created, recorded, and uploaded a mastery course on mastering divine focus, which is the art of really being aligned with our inner vision, with creating, through the synthesis of all the elements together as one, the unification of our soul and human aspects, all the desire that is divine in nature, in the integration of all the aspects of the self, so that we can work for the greater good, so that our manifestations can really reflect who we truly are and the essence of our divine beingness. But in this video, besides letting you know that the course is now available, I want to present the knowing of a special component here that's also very important, and this is this unification of polarization that really is the artistry of our focused intent. That is not just through coming through goals. A lot of times we confuse focus with having goals. It's the human mind that has goals and aspirations and wants to establish, wants to move the energy forward. But the soul just thrives on being passionate and having the experience and serving and being in divine service with its own unique contribution and its unique individualized spark. So to know the art of focus is also to know the art of creation and its principles, and I share this in my mastery course. But I also want to emphasize here that when we understand the sacred trinity of the creation process, we will see that our divine humanness, our human aspect, is our divine child. So when we have our spirit, the masculine representation, and our form, the soul, the feminine presentation, birthing the synthesis that is the human aspect. Therefore, sometimes we say only our divinity matters. That's not true, because why otherwise would this human aspect exist? This counterpart that is created as a triangulation within the two that create a polarization and unity and birth this unique creation. So once you have the birthing process, you have this human experience, you have the human part. It's almost like the child. It represents the aspect of the divine child, and it has its own entity, has its own identity, has its own experience, and it starts to refine itself through having its own experience. Therefore, in our ascension now and becoming more perfected human beings, we're starting to realize that, and no longer just being vertical or just horizontal, but also unifying in this great divine love, this aspect that we call our human experience, that we kind of see the value in it. So when we work with the art of focus, we start to understand that our spirit works to our form. So the spirit and the soul combine. They're a group effort, because in truth they have always been one. They have always been harmonious. It's just whether our human aspect that is birthed and created as an individualized expression, as a triangulation, as a process, as a birthing product of that triangulation that has its own consciousness, so its own life. But also what's important here is the understanding of these different energies that flow through this process. So the spirit is that sacred fire, that divine fire, the light that ignites the process, that moves the energy forward, that's the seed. And then that feminine aspect is that holy breath. It's that which, you can see that aspect as the chalice and the blade playing out. And what they create together is this, almost like you have this symbol of fleur-de-lis. So the first three rays, the primary rays in creation, this is the three-folded flame of our soul spark. They actually just mirror the aspect of as above, so below. So you have the divine source, the creator, the father, the divine mother, and then you have the divine child. Our own natural three-folded flame within us is the direct representation of that which is playing out in the grander scheme of things. So everything is always from the macro to the micro, and it's amazing that we're just starting to realize that now in our ascension, so that we can start to bring more value and recognition to this human aspect that's birthing. And although our humanness has a long history, so to say, it has a long journey that it traveled through in its own expansion, it still has a lot to experience and to give birth to. And as that part matures enough and it comes into this completion, it starts to again formulate together, create another triangulation, and this is why creation always expands. It's very simple when we understand the basic principles of creation and the structures of the divine nature, because we are the same and we flow along those principles. it's how we're structured, and it's how we then, when we start to be aware of that, create. We start to co-create with our divine nature and in the synthesis that is the birthing product in our human self. Also, what's important is then to see that this chalice and the blade, that's the spark of spirit, the spark that ignites, it moves forward. It's that diligent part of us. It's that moving energy, you know, it's very devoted, it's very oriented, and that's that feminine, which is the receptive, the nurturing force. So it's kind of like if you give a spark, the flame of something, and a flame only burns, you know, without that feeling of of nurturing that, then again you're only experiencing one side of this polarity, which in truth is always in unity. It's just whether we can have a wholesome experience. As you know, a sphere is that representation of spirit, where everything is just pure potential and it's perfect. So once that unity starts to be more aware inside of us, we ignite the fire of that awareness, then we have that experience. So our focus will change, because we will come from a unified approach to everything we create in our humanness, and we will no longer deny our human aspect as just this byproduct that has no sense, as this messy, dense, weird, not always understood, needy. You know, children, divine child, sometimes we can say it's needy, because it's the aspect that needs nurture. So when you have the densest representation of the sacred trinity as, let's say, the birthing process of a real child, and that child represents the divine child, and sometimes it's needy and it has needs, and before it grows up on its own and becomes sovereign individual, then it needs this nurture and needs feeding and nourishment. And the same goes with what we're creating on a bigger level. And when you look at creation on a bigger scheme of things, you see that playing out perfectly. And I will share a lot more on creation in general and combine the knowledge that I have created tons and tons of these notes through years of my conscious remembering of the knowledge from the I am, the I amness, the spark of creation, the keepers of the flame of creation, the white light of the mother flame, and the white brotherhood that, you know, I serve. And all this combined in this workshop that I will provide called Cosmic Convergence, because what Cosmic Convergence is the knowing that these higher parts coming and the lower parts are actually one, and they're coming into synthesis. You know, the higher aspects are awakening the lower aspects, but the lower aspects are also calling in the higher aspects to merge, to unify, and that our human experience is where this unification takes place through the actual experience in physicality. This is beautiful representation of how we have that divine remembrance ignited in our knowing when we're present, when we know that we exist. You know, I'm sitting here in this beach now, and it's beautiful, and I have my senses plugged in. It's sensuality of the soul, and this is how I know I'm alive. I exist. I'm conscious. And the more awareness is triggered, the more this consciousness is felt, and the higher this refinement of the combining, this conglomerate of the spirit and soul, creating this humanness. It's becoming this triangulation, and it's the melting pot where all meets, and all the aspects marry each other. So when I'm going to publish finally this workshop, it will involve everything from the nature of creation, and from the understanding of time, dimensions, also the star systems, and how we in our own micro nature correlate with that, and where we fit in, and how this all plays out through the beauty of these divine archetypes that we're constantly engaging in as we expand and evolve. So as the explorers of the infinite, of the mystical, the unknown, I invite you to stay tuned. This is it for today. There'll be lots more. There's lots more also in the course, Mastering Divine Focus. This is where we are now, because, you know, every master needed to learn the master of focus. As you know, there's many stories of masters who were able to do so much, maybe even at once, you know, co-create different things at different rates, different speeds, very much attuned to a higher frequency that was able to come through almost like an instant pouring out of this divine light through them, and many manifestations simultaneously. But before they could do that, they needed to first master doing that one thing completely with full presence, and this is where we are now. So mastering focus, it's also a theme for this month specifically. Very strongly the energy relates to this, because I'm getting constant messages about this. Also I see it from others, so it's beautiful, beautiful time, and I invite you to stay tuned. As always, so much love, wisdom, and power. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.